Another thing interesting in this polling was more independents said that they worry about President Biden weakening democracy than Trump, 53% to 42%. What do you make of this?
I find it shocking, honestly. I can't, make sense of that number. I wish I could. I wish I had some really great insight to it.
People are so tired of this.
There's a brand new Marist poll out that shows that independent voters, last I checked, that's a pretty important voting block, independent voters think that it's Joe Biden who poses the greater threat to American democracy and the democratic process than Donald Trump. And while this news did not sit well with a certain panel over on a certain network with a peacock in their logo.
Another thing interesting in this polling was more independents said that they worry about President Biden weakening democracy than Trump, 53% to 42%. What do you make of this?
I find it shocking, honestly. I can't, make sense of that number. I wish I could. I wish I had some really great insight to it. But I don't know if it's an outlier or not, because the other numbers with independents and Biden are going in the right direction. So that may be it. But also, just one thing I wanted to add on to what Basil said. This trial's not on TV. You guys do a great job reporting what's happening. But if there aren't those images coming out of the courthouse, people feel like they know this story. We've heard about it for a long time. So it doesn't surprise me that they're not interested.
Well, thank you both so much for being here, Basil.
They're so sad. Sarah, this, of course, is framed within the context of the trial up in Manhattan. And it seems like people already know this story. Yes, because you've been telling us about it for 8 years and it made no impact then. Are you surprised that they're surprised that all of this coverage of the Trump trials isn't having the impact they were hoping for?
It's all made for TV. It's just like the January 6th hearings. Everything is just made, produced. And it's funny that they're, freaking out because it's not going in their favor anymore. They're trying to shove Donald Trump to do the basement strategy that Joe Biden won, but it's just not Trump's MO. And people believe that Trump can actually come out and win no matter what, because he is who he is. He stands for what he stands for, and he stands for Americans. Joe Biden stands for himself, and his social media team stands to put out horrible messaging, things on the economy. So you're looking at realism versus this entire fake narrative, dystopian mindset that CNN, MSNBC, et cetera, have.
Yeah, I mean, we even saw Hillary Clinton with Morning Joe this week saying, "Don't you understand the threat to our democracy?" They certainly can't talk about what a great economy we've got. So this is what they have, but it just isn't sticking the way conventional wisdom in DC thought it would.
It is the boy who cried wolf. People are so tired of this. Even if you think President Trump did some things that were concerning and you don't like, obviously, the way January 6th unfolded, it was a horrible day. Even if you're concerned about that and you have strong opinions, the media has been shoving it down our throats for 10 years. You're going to get tired of it eventually. Nothing made them more disappointed than when he left office and their viewership went down because they didn't have him to talk about anymore. And I actually think there's a broader point here, Larry, which is not just on President Biden, but the Democratic Party in general, which is that the actual assaults on democracy that we're seeing that are part of the Democratic platform that candidates are running on every day go way beyond President Biden. They want to pack the Supreme Court. They want to abolish the Electoral College. They want to, abolish the Senate, depending on who you're asking, right? So much of the Biden agenda is being rammed down our throats through unconstitutional executive orders and regulations that overstep the will of Congress because Congress won't enact their agenda. These are genuine attacks on our democracy, on our democratic republic. I think people see that this administration, this party, this movement, they're all about ramming their agenda down our throats, even though the American people are rejecting it and fundamentally altering our government in order to do so. That's a real threat to democracy, and I think people see that.
Well, you're right about that threat to the democracy, but also, Andy, the irony here that clearly these guys on MSNBC can't pick up on, we're giving you wall-to-wall coverage of Democrats trying to convict and jail the Republican nominee for president, Donald Trump, using a law that has never been applied before in any way whatsoever. Why do they think we're the threat to democracy? I mean, they literally are doing something so unprecedented. Clearly, they are the ones who are a threat to our process because, I don't know, there's tens of millions of people who would like to vote for Donald Trump.
Hey, Larry, I wonder what day it is. in a lefty's world. I really do. This just shows how detached from the reality of living in Biden's America leftist pundits and leftist journalists truly are. Real Americans are faced with making ends meet. They're faced with hostile campuses that support terrorists and insane foreign policy. Real Americans know who the real threat to democracy is.
Yeah, that's a great point. And also, I want to go back around the table here, starting with you, Andy, on that point, because, listen, I disagree with Democrats, but up until about 10 years ago, they really did stand for ideas I disagreed with, but they stood for ideas and policies. Now, if you think about what the Democrats stand for, it really just boils down to stopping Trump. Whatever Trump is for, we're against. And that's not really how you build a robust political party or an important debate that we should be having in this country.
Exactly right. There's no consensus in that thinking. I would add that their mission is to destroy America and remake it in whatever warped image they want to, a Marxist, socialist image that people are rejecting wholesale. And then when the media reports on it, they get the people get scolded for not reacting the way that the media wants them to.
Yeah, Akash, back to you on that, because the message that we're going to hear, and we're going to continue to hear it, is Trump's a threat to democracy. This could be the last election we have. Meanwhile, Trump's going to run on, I'm going to keep the tax cuts going. I'm going to reduce regulation. I'm going to get our economy back in a robust way, the way it was before these guys took over. I mean, I'm biased, but I think one's a much more positive message.
One's a much more positive message, and one's a lot more connected to the concerns of everyday Americans that Andy's talking about. You're not only concerned about the direction of the country, right, and our founding principles and things like that. And like I said, independents might have legitimate concerns about both of these candidates when it comes to kind of these high-minded values. But at the end of the day, can you make ends meet? Are your kids safe? What's going on in your kids' school? These are the things people make decisions off of. And if Joe Biden and Democrats refuse to talk about that, and all they're talking about is Dobbs and democracy, then lots of people who voted against Donald Trump in 2020 are going to be open to voting for him in 2024 if he's the only one talking about the issues that concern them and their family on a day-to-day basis.
All right, Sarah, back to the queen of comms here. I mean, you make a living literally trying to help fashion messages and get politicians, people running for office or people in office, to stick with a winning message. This threat to democracy that Donald Trump, and by the way, by extension, the people who vote for Donald Trump, remember, this is always a talking point attacking the people who support Donald Trump. This threat to democracy thing, is it sticking? Is it gonna stick? Are they gonna stick with it through the election?
I don't think so. If you think about what we've seen for the past year, just even with campaign season, we're past the basement thing. Joe Biden is forced to be in front of people. He's just saying empty words that people on his team writes out for him. But when it comes to the Democrats' messaging, they don't really care about the ideas anymore as they care about screaming things in your face. There's this concept called the heckler's veto, which is when two groups are next to each other, just yelling the same thing louder and louder to see who can yell it the loudest. And that's what the Democrats are doing. It's, we hate Trump. We hate the economy. He did so much bad. It's always orange man bad after all of these years. But Americans want to hear about the economy. They want to hear about the border. They want to talk about the kitchen table issues that are affecting them every single day. We're so sick of hearing four words, Stormy Daniels and Michael Cohen. Just leave this sham trial behind, get to campaigning so it sets us up in 2028 for a fresh set of candidates. Otherwise, we're just going to repeat this cycle all over again.
One more quick one-word answer from each of you, because the idea of Biden debating Trump came up again. Biden said a couple of weeks ago, we talked about here on the roundtable, that, yeah, he'd love to debate Trump. This week, a reporter said, when are you going to debate Trump? And Biden said, set it up. Sarah, you think this is going to happen?
Depends if it's after his bedtime.
And Andy?
Gosh, I hope so.
Gosh.
I do. People will demand it.
I don't think it's going to happen. There's no way. They would sooner get a new candidate in there than run the risk of having Biden up there for 90 minutes with Donald Trump.